I was at work when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother at 11:37 p.m. The message read, "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family. Don't come to any gatherings." Below it, I saw my sister Amber had liked the message. My hands shook as I typed back, "Thanks for confirming. I'll cancel all the auto payments." I hit send at 11:59 p.m. By 12:03 a.m., my phone exploded with 47 missed calls. I silenced it and watched the number climb to 93. I sat in my apartment, staring at the silenced phone as it continued to light up like a strobe light in the darkness. Call after call after call. The screen showed my mother's name, then Amber's, then my mother's boyfriend Gerald, then back to my mother. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. My fingers moved with a strange calm as I navigated to the auto transfer section. There they all were, lined up like little financial vampires that had been draining me for 6 years straight. First, I canceled the $2,800 monthly mortgage payment for my mother's house. Then, the $645 car payment for Amber's SUV. The $400 for utilities at the family home. The $18,000 tuition payment that processed every semester for my brother Tyler's college. And finally, the big one, the $6,500 monthly payment for my father's nursing home care. $11,000. That's what I'd been sending them every single month for 6 years. I worked as a senior financial analyst at a consulting firm, pulling in a solid $140,000 a year. I'd clawed my way up from community college while Amber and Tyler got the full university experience, complete with sorority dues and fraternity parties that I also helped fund. I'd skipped vacations, driven the same old Honda for 8 years, lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment while they all enjoyed lives they couldn't actually afford. And for what? Not a single thank you. Not one genuine expression of gratitude. Just expectations. Always more expectations. The text message tonight hadn't come out of nowhere. 3 weeks ago, Amber announced her engagement to Brandon, a guy she'd been dating for 7 months. She wanted a destination wedding in Hawaii. The budget? $35,000. She'd sent me a detailed spreadsheet breaking down exactly how much I'd be contributing. I'd looked at my savings account, already depleted from covering an emergency roof repair on my mother's house 6 months earlier, and I'd said no. Actually, I'd said I couldn't afford it. There's a difference, but my family had never cared much for nuance. My mother had called me selfish, said if I really wanted to, I could find the money. Said family helps family. Then came the words that should have warned me. If you won't help your sister on the most important day of her life, then what good are you to this family? I should have seen it coming. But some part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, thought she didn't mean it, thought maybe she'd cool down, thought maybe, just once, they'd see things from my perspective. Instead, I got that text. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family." The worst part? Amber had liked it. My little sister, who I'd basically raised after Dad got sick, had given that cruel message a thumbs up like it was a funny meme. So I'd canceled everything. Every single automatic payment. I also went into my credit card accounts and removed my mother and Amber as authorized users. Cards I'd given them for emergencies that somehow always got used for shopping sprees and spa days. At 12:15 a.m., I closed my laptop and went to bed. For the first time in 6 years, I felt something unfamiliar, light, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But underneath that lightness was terror, absolute terror at what I'd just done. I didn't sleep, just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to my phone buzz approximately 400 times before dawn. When morning finally came, I got dressed for work and headed down to the parking lot of my apartment building. I opened the door to the stairwell and immediately heard shouting. My stomach dropped. I walked down 3 flights and pushed open the exterior door to find my entire family in the parking lot. My mother, her face red and puffy from crying. Amber, wearing designer sunglasses despite the early hour. Tyler, my younger brother, looking uncomfortable near the back. Gerald, my mother's boyfriend of 2 years, standing with his arms crossed. And Brandon, Amber's fiancé, recording everything on his phone. My building's security guard, Marcus, was trying to keep them away from the entrance. They were all yelling at once, but my mother's voice carried above the rest. Kathy, you can't do this. I didn't mean it. I was just upset. I stood frozen in the doorway. Amber spotted me first. There she is. There's the selfish witch who's abandoning her whole family. Marcus turned to me. Miss Harper, do you know these people? Yes, I said quietly. They're my family. Do you want to speak with them? Or should I call the police for trespassing? My mother rushed forward, but Marcus blocked her. Baby, please. I'm sorry. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. You can't actually cut us off. What about the mortgage? What about your father? Something in me hardened. You said I wasn't family anymore. You all agreed. So these aren't family matters. These are your problems now. Kathy, don't be ridiculous, Gerald shouted. Your mother made a mistake. You're really going to destroy your whole family over one text message? One text message that Amber liked, I said, looking at my sister. One text message that you all agreed on. You wanted me out of the family? Congratulations, you got your wish. Tyler stepped forward. Kathy, come on. This is crazy. Can we just talk? Before I could respond, Amber's voice cut through the air like a knife. Dad's nursing home called. They're discharging him in 70. 2 hours if we don't pay. You're killing your own father. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my knees weaken. My father. The one person in this family who'd never asked me for anything, who didn't even understand what was happening anymore, who had advanced Parkinson's and dementia and needed around the clock care. I looked at my mother, who was nodding frantically. Yes, they called yesterday. Kathy, he'll have nowhere to go. You can't do this to him. He's your father. Marcus looked at me with sympathy. Miss Harper, I need you to make a decision. Talk to them elsewhere, or I'm calling the police. Call the police, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. I want them removed from the property. My mother's sobs got louder. Amber screamed obscenities. But I turned around and walked back into the building, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the elevator button. As the doors closed, I could hear Amber's final scream. You're a monster. A selfish monster. I hope you rot alone. The guilt was already eating me alive. But I rode the elevator up, grabbed my keys and purse from my apartment, and went down to the garage exit on the other side of the building. I had to get to work, had to keep my life together, because something told me this was only the beginning. I sat at my desk that day, accomplishing absolutely nothing. My hands would hover over my keyboard, but my brain couldn't form a single coherent thought. All I could see was my father's face. All I could hear was Amber's accusation. You're killing your own father. By 3 p.m., I gave up pretending to work. I told my manager I had a family emergency and left early. I drove directly to Greenwood Care Facility, where my father had lived for the past 3 years. The building was nice as far as nursing homes go. Clean, well, lit, with staff who actually seemed to care. That's why it cost $6,500 a month. I'd been paying every cent of it because my mother claimed she couldn't afford to contribute. She was on a fixed income from my father's disability payments, which apparently all went to her own expenses. I found the director's office and knocked. Janet Montgomery looked up from her desk. She was a kind woman in her 50s who'd always treated my father with dignity. But today, her expression was strained. Kathy, she said, I'm glad you're here. Please, sit down. I sat, my stomach churning. I assume your family told you about the payment situation, she began gently. They mentioned it this morning. 70? 2 hours? Janet nodded. I'm sorry. We've tried to work with your mother, but the account is now 60 days past due. That's $13,000. Our policy is very clear. We can't continue to provide care without payment. 60 days. My mother was supposed to be paying half. She'd told me she was paying half, but clearly she'd been lying for 2 months while I'd been faithfully sending my portion. If payment isn't received, Janet continued, we'll have to discharge your father. Your mother has indicated she plans to take him home. But honestly, Kathy, I don't think that's a suitable environment for his needs. He requires specialized care. Take him home, to the house where my mother barely managed to take care of herself, where she'd let the roof leak for 6 months before I paid to fix it, where the refrigerator was always half, empty because she spent her money on other things. Can I see him? I asked. Of course. I walked down the familiar hallway to my father's room, room 214. I'd visited at least twice a month for 3 years, though my mother rarely came at all. "Too depressing," she said. I pushed open the door. My father sat in his wheelchair by the window, looking out at the garden. He was 68, but looked 80. The Parkinson's had ravaged his body. His hands trembled constantly. His face had that blank mask, like expression the disease causes. "Hi, Dad," I said softly, pulling up a chair beside him. He turned slowly, his eyes trying to focus. Most days, he didn't recognize me. The dementia had stolen most of his memories. But I came anyway, just to sit with him. Just so he wasn't alone. Today, though, something shifted in his eyes, a flicker of recognition. "Katie?" he said. His voice was weak and slurred, but it was there. My childhood nickname. Tears immediately filled my eyes. "Yeah, Dad, it's me." His trembling hand reached for mine. I took it gently, careful not to hurt him. "My smart girl," he whispered. "So proud of you." I broke down, just completely fell apart. Because this was why I'd been paying for everything. For these rare, precious moments when he came back to me. When the fog lifted just enough for him to remember he had a daughter who loved him. "I love you, Dad," I sobbed. We sat like that for 20 minutes. He didn't say anything else, and gradually, the recognition faded from his eyes. He went back to staring at the garden, and I knew he was gone again, lost in whatever maze his mind had become. When I left his room, I found Janet waiting in the hallway. "He had a good moment," I told her. "I'm glad," she said. "Kathy, I hate to press, but we need to know what's happening with the account." I took a deep breath. "If I pay the $13,000 today, he can stay?" "Yes." "And going forward, can we set it up so only I'm responsible for payment? I want my mother's name removed from everything." Janet hesitated. "Your mother is listed as his primary contact and power of attorney. Can I change that? You'd need legal documentation showing you have power of attorney instead. Do you have that?" "No," I admitted, "but I'll get it." I went to the business office and paid the $13,000 on my credit card. Watching my available credit drop by that amount made me feel physically ill. That was most of my emergency fund, gone. But what choice did I have? I couldn't let my father be dumped into some terrible state facility because my family was too selfish to take care of him. I also changed my contact information to the primary spot and asked them to call me first for any issues. When I walked out to my car, I felt hollowed out. I'd sworn I was done being their ATM machine. That resolution had lasted less than 24 hours. As I sat in my car, my phone buzzed with an email from HR at my company. My blood ran cold as I read it. "Dear Kathy Harper, a formal complaint has been filed against you regarding workplace harassment. You are being placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. You will be contacted within 48 hours regarding next steps. During this time, you are not to come to the office or contact any colleagues regarding this matter. Your building access has been temporarily suspended." I read it 3 times trying to make sense of it. Workplace harassment? I'd never harassed anyone. I barely talked to anyone outside of meetings. I kept my head down and did my work. I called the HR hotline immediately. A woman named Sandra answered. "I just got an email about a harassment complaint," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There must be some mistake. Can you tell me what this is about?" "I'm sorry, Miss Harper, but I can't discuss the details of the complaint. The investigation is confidential. You'll be contacted by our HR director within 2 business days. But I don't even know what I'm supposed to have done. Who filed the complaint?" "I can't release that information. I understand this is stressful, but we have to follow protocol. You'll hear from us soon." She hung up. I sat there, stunned. Administrative leave meant no pay. I'd just drained $13,000 from my emergency fund. I had a mortgage on my apartment, car payment, student loans, regular bills. I couldn't afford to miss even one paycheck. My hands were shaking as I logged into my work email on my phone, trying to see if there were any clues. But my access had already been cut. Everything was locked. Then I remembered. I'd gotten one notification before the lockout. I frantically searched my phone's notification history and found it. An email from the HR complaint system. I'd gotten the preview before access was revoked. Formal complaint filed by Brandon Mitchell regarding employee Kathy Harper. Brandon Mitchell, Amber's fiance. Brandon didn't even work at my company. He worked for some marketing startup downtown. Why would he be filing a complaint against me? I drove home in a daze. When I got inside my apartment, I opened my laptop and searched for Brandon on social media. His profile was public, and there, posted 6 hours ago, was a long rant. Can't believe some people. My fiance's sister is literally stalking and harassing me because she's jealous we're getting married. She's been sending threatening messages and trying to sabotage our relationship. Even contacted my employer with lies. I've had to file a formal complaint with her company because she won't stop. Some people are just toxic and can't stand seeing others happy. The post had 200 likes and dozens of comments supporting him. I'd never sent Brandon a single message. Never contacted his employer. Never done anything to him at all. But he'd somehow managed to file a complaint with my company, and now I was suspended without pay while they investigated his lies. I sat on my couch as the sun set, finally understanding what was happening. They weren't just angry I'd cut them off. They were actively trying to destroy my life. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a lawyer. His name was Richard Chen, and he cost $3,500 just for the retainer. I found him through a referral from a colleague I trusted. His specialty was employment law and defamation. I met him in his downtown office and laid out everything. The text message from my mother, the canceled payments, the scene at my apartment, the $13,000 I'd paid for my father's care. And finally, Brandon's false harassment complaint and his social media lies. Richard listened carefully, taking notes. First question, he said. Do you have documentation of everything? The payments you've been making, the text messages, everything? Yes. 6 years of bank statements, every text and email. Good. Second question. Have you ever communicated with Brandon Mitchell in a threatening way? Any messages at all? No. I barely know him. We've met maybe 3 times at family dinners. I've never texted him, emailed him, nothing. Richard nodded. Then, here's what we're going to do. First, we compile everything. Every payment you've made to your family, every message, everything that shows a pattern of financial dependency and manipulation. Second, we respond to your employer's investigation with a clear statement of facts and evidence that Brandon's complaint is false. Third, we send Brandon a cease and desist regarding his defamatory social media posts. Fourth, we consider a civil suit for defamation if this costs you your job. Over the next 12 days, I lived in a special kind of hell. I couldn't work, couldn't earn money, just had to sit home and wait while HR conducted their investigation. Meanwhile, Brandon's social media campaign continued. He posted screenshots of my mother and Amber crying, with captions like family torn apart by jealousy and mental illness. He shared photos from Amber's engagement party with long captions about how I'd refused to even attend to support my own sister. I hadn't been invited to the engagement party. But his followers didn't know that. They just saw the narrative he was building. Poor Brandon and Amber, victims of Brandon's unstable future sister, in law. People from my past started unfriending me on social media. Former classmates from community college, people I'd worked with at previous jobs, distant relatives I barely knew. I started getting messages. Wow, I never knew you were like this. You should be ashamed. Your poor family. Richard advised me not to respond to any of it. Don't engage, he said. Let them dig their own graves. We're building a case. I spent those 12 days compiling every shred of evidence. Bank statements showing 6 years of payments totaling over $400,000 to my family. Text messages where my mother asked for money. Emails where Amber sent me her car payment amount. Records of the Hawaii wedding budget with my contribution highlighted. The pattern was undeniable. They'd been using me as their personal ATM for years, and not once had they offered to pay me back. Not once had they genuinely thanked me. The messages were always demands or guilt trips. If you really loved us, you'd help. Family takes care of family. Don't be selfish. On day 11 of my suspension, Richard submitted our response to my company's HR department. It was 40 pages long with 200 pages of supporting documentation. It showed that I'd never contacted Brandon Mitchell, that his complaint was filed in retaliation for me stopping financial support to his fiancée, that he was conducting a defamation campaign on social media. that this was all part of a larger pattern of financial abuse by my family. On day 13, I got the call. Sandra from HR sounded different this time, professional but warmer. Miss Harper, we've concluded our investigation. Mr. Mitchell's complaint has been found to be without merit. There's no evidence supporting his allegations, and significant evidence that the complaint was filed in bad faith. You're being reinstated immediately with full back pay. We apologize for the stress this has caused. We'll be sending a formal letter to Mr. Mitchell informing him that filing false complaints is a serious matter that could result in legal consequences. I almost cried with relief. Thank you. Your access will be restored within the hour. We'll see you back in the office whenever you're ready. I called Richard immediately to tell him. He was pleased but cautious. That's good, he said. But Kathy, people like your family don't stop. They're desperate. Be prepared for them to escalate. What else can they do? I asked. The harassment complaint failed. I have a restraining order preventing them from coming to my building. What's left? I don't know, Richard said. But desperate people do desperate things. He was right to warn me. That same afternoon, while I was at work trying to catch up on everything I'd missed, my phone rang. Greenwood Care Facility. Janet Montgomery. Kathy, I need you to come here immediately, she said. Her voice was tight with stress. What's wrong? Is it Dad? Your mother is here. She brought a lawyer. She's transferring your father out. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? She can't do that. I just paid his bill. She has power of attorney. Legally, she has the right. They're moving him to a state facility. I tried to stop them, but Kathy, the lawyer, has all the paperwork. It's legitimate. Your father is being moved right now. I ran out of the office, drove 20 minutes to the care facility, breaking probably a dozen traffic laws. But by the time I got there, it was too late. My father's room was empty. The bed stripped, his few personal belongings gone. Janet found me standing in the doorway, tears streaming down my face. I'm so sorry, she said. Your mother has full legal power of attorney. There was nothing we could do. Where did they take him? Janet handed me a paper with an address. Riverside State Care Facility. I knew that place. Everyone knew that place. It was where people went when they had no money and no options, understaffed, underfunded. The kind of place where people died from neglect. I drove there immediately. The building looked like a prison. Gray concrete, tiny windows, a chain, link fence around a barren yard. Inside was worse. The smell hit me first. Urine and bleach and something rotting. The hallways were dimly lit. I could hear people crying out from rooms. There were maybe 2 staff members visible for what looked like 100 patients. I found my father in a room with 3 other men. He was in a bed by the window, but there was no garden view here, just the parking lot. He was awake, his eyes wide and terrified. He didn't recognize where he was. His whole body was trembling, and not just from the Parkinson's. He was scared. Dad, I whispered, taking his hand. He looked at me without recognition. Just fear. A nurse came in. She looked exhausted. You family? I'm his daughter. I need to know what happened. Who authorized this transfer? His wife. She came with all the legal paperwork. Said she's taking over his care. This place isn't equipped for his needs. He needs specialized Parkinson's care. He needs his medications adjusted regularly. He needs— Ma'am, the nurse interrupted. We do the best we can with what we have. If his wife wants him here, and she has power of attorney, there's nothing you can do about it. I tried to talk to administrators, tried to explain, but legally I had no standing. My mother had power of attorney. She'd made the decision. My father would stay here unless she decided otherwise. I sat with him for 2 hours. He never recognized me, just stared at the ceiling, trembling, occasionally making sounds of distress. When I finally left, I found my mother waiting in the parking lot. Amber was with her. Now you understand, my mother said. Her eyes were cold. You want to cut us off? Fine. But you'll watch your father suffer in the worst place possible. You want to change your mind about helping your family? I can move him back to Greenwood tomorrow. Your choice. This is elder abuse, I said. You're using Dad as a hostage. I'm his wife. I'm making decisions about his care. Nothing illegal about that. She smiled. Think it over, Kathy. Think about him in there, scared and confused. Think about how quickly he'll decline without proper care. Then think about how easy it would be to fix this. Just start helping your family again. That's all we're asking. Amber stepped forward. Pay for my wedding and agree to keep supporting Mom. That's all. Then Dad goes back to the nice place. Easy. I looked at them, really looked at them, and I saw clearly, maybe for the first time ever, what they were. They weren't my family. They were extortionists, manipulators, abusers. And they were using my father's suffering as leverage. No, I said quietly. My mother's face darkened. Then his blood is on your hands. I drove home and called Richard Chen. I told him everything. This is criminal elder abuse, he said. But proving it will be complicated. However, Kathy, you said your mother has power of attorney? Yes. Do you know when it was created? No. Dad got sick 5 years ago. I assume it was around then. Find out. Get documentation. If there's anything irregular about that power of attorney, we can challenge it. In the meantime, document everything about this facility. Take photos. Record conditions. We're going to need it. That night, I barely slept. All I could see was my father's terrified face in that terrible room. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't going to cave. I wasn't going to give in to extortion. I was going to fight back, and I was going to win. I took the next day off work and drove to the courthouse. I needed to see the actual power of attorney document. If my mother had legal authority, I wanted to know exactly what that authority entailed. At the clerk's office, I requested any power of attorney documents filed for Donald Harper, my father. The clerk came back with a file. There's one on record from 5 years ago, she said, handing it to me. I read through it carefully. It gave my mother full authority to make medical and financial decisions for my father in the event he became incapacitated. But then I remembered something. 2 years ago, my father had a rare good period, about 3 months where the medications were working better and his mind was clearer. He'd even asked me to take him to his lawyer's office for something. I'd driven him, waited in the lobby while he met privately with his attorney, then driven him back to Greenwood. He never told me what the meeting was about. I'd assumed it was updating his will. Is this the only power of attorney on file? I asked the clerk. She checked the system. There's a notation here about a revocation filed 2 years ago. Let me pull that. She disappeared into the back and returned with another document. My hands shook as I read it. 2 years ago, during that clear period, my father had revoked my mother's power of attorney. The reason stated, loss of trust in previous agent's judgment and financial management. He'd then appointed a new agent, with power of attorney, Kathy Marie Harper, me. I was legally my father's power of attorney, not my mother. Why isn't this showing up in the system? I asked. The clerk looked closer. It was filed, but see this note? Says the original requesting party never picked up the certified copies. Sometimes people file something and then never complete the process. But it's legally valid, as of the filing date. I got copies of everything, certified and notarized. Then I called Richard Chen. I have power of attorney over my father. My mother's been using old revoked documents. That's forgery and fraud, Richard said. We're calling the State Elder Abuse Hotline right now. Within hours, Adult Protective Services opened an investigation. I provided them with copies of the real power of attorney and photos of the terrible conditions at Riverside State Care. But the investigation would take time. Meanwhile, my father was still suffering. That evening, something else happened. I got a text from an unknown number. Your mother owes $70,000. She said you'd pay. You have 14 days. My blood ran cold. Then another text. We know where you live. Attached was a photo of my apartment building. Then another. We know where you work. A photo of my office building. I called the police immediately. Filed a report. They said without explicit threats of violence, there wasn't much they could do. Change your locks. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't engage with these messages. That wasn't good enough. But what choice did I have? The next day, my car was keyed. Someone had carved pay up into the driver's side door. I filed another police report, added the photo to the growing file. Then, 3 days after the text started, 2 men showed up at my apartment. I saw them through my peephole, both in their 30s, wearing nice clothes, not overtly threatening. But something about them made my skin crawl. I called 911 and told them what was happening. They said an officer would be there in 10 minutes. I pressed record on my phone's voice memo before opening the door with the chain still on. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Kathy Harper?" one of them said. He had a friendly smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Who's asking?" "We're associates of someone your mother owes money to. $70,000. She told us you're good for it." "I don't owe anyone anything." "Your mother says different. Says you've been paying her bills for years, so we figured you'd want to help her out of this situation too. My mother and I are estranged. Whatever she owes is her problem." The second man stepped closer. "Here's the thing. We've been very patient, but patience runs out. You have 7 days to come up with the 70,000. Otherwise, we'll have to get creative about collecting." "Are you threatening me?" "We're explaining reality," the first man said. 7 days. We'll be in touch about payment arrangements." They left just as the police cruiser pulled up. I gave the officers my recording and descriptions. They took another report but said, without explicit threats, it was hard to charge anyone with anything. I forwarded everything to Richard Chen. "This is getting dangerous," he said. "Your mother's in serious trouble, and she's trying to drag you into it. Do you know what she owes this money for?" "No." I called Tyler, my brother. He was the only family member who hadn't been actively attacking me. He answered on the third ring. "Tyler, I need to know what's going on with Mom. Who does she owe $70,000 to?" Silence. "Tyler, they came to my apartment. This is serious." "I don't know if I should tell you," he said quietly. "Tyler, please." He sighed. "Mom's been gambling. Online poker. Started about 18 months ago. She thought she could win big, pay off all her debts. Instead, she lost everything. She borrowed money from people to keep playing, thinking she'd win it back. She didn't. The people she borrowed from aren't banks. They're not nice people." My head spun. "She's been using my money to pay them off?" "Minimum payments, yeah. But now that you stopped, they want everything. And Mom told them you'd pay. Gave them your address, your workplace, everything. She figured you'd cave rather than risk getting hurt." "What about you?" I asked. "Are they coming after you?" "I'm a college student with no money. You're the one with the good job. That's why she gave them your info." "Tyler, this is insane." "I know," he said. "Look, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I should have done a lot of things differently. Mom and Amber, they've been planning all this." "Planning what?" "The text message. The disowning you. It was all calculated. They sat down 3 months ago and planned it. They figured you'd panic, apologize, and agree to pay for the wedding to get back in their good graces. They never expected you to actually cut them off." My vision went blurry. Everything had been a setup. The cruelty had been premeditated. "There's more," Tyler said. "Remember when I said they were desperate? They're about to lose the house. Mortgage is 90 days overdue. Amber's car got repossessed last week. Mom's boyfriend left her. They have nothing, and they're blaming you for all of it." The next 3 days were a nightmare. More threatening messages. Someone threw a brick through my apartment window at 2 a.m. More police reports that went nowhere. Then, on day 6, I got home from work to find a letter from my bank. A loan I'd never applied for had been taken out in my name. $45,000. I called the fraud department immediately. They launched an investigation. I filed an identity theft report with the police. The loan officer who'd processed it was named Patricia. She called me directly. "Miss Harper, I'm the one who flagged your mother's application as suspicious. But my manager overrode me and approved it. That manager has since been fired for approving several fraudulent loans. I kept all the documentation because I knew something was wrong. Your signature was forged. I'm willing to testify to that." "My mother forged my signature?" "Yes, and she had enough of your personal information to make it convincing. Date of birth, social security number, employment information. She's been committing identity theft." My credit was destroyed. $45,000 in fraudulent debt attached to my name. It would take months to clear, even with proof of fraud. I sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by all the evidence of my family's betrayal, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Not sadness, not guilt. Rage. Pure, burning rage. They'd manipulated me for years, extorted me, used me, and when I'd finally stood up for myself, they'd tried to destroy me, stolen my identity, sixed dangerous people on me, used my father as a hostage. I wasn't going to take it anymore. I called Richard Chen. I want to press charges for everything. Identity theft, fraud, elder abuse, all of it. I want them arrested. Are you sure? He asked. That's your mother. Once you do this, there's no going back. I'm sure. Okay, Richard said. Let's go nuclear. The next morning, I walked into the police station with Richard Chen, Patricia from the bank, and 6 years' worth of documentation. We met with Detective Sarah Morrison from the fraud division. I laid it all out. The forged power of attorney, the identity theft, the fraudulent loan, the financial exploitation, the threats from the people my mother owed money to, the elder abuse of my father. Everything. Detective Morrison listened carefully, examining each piece of evidence. This is extensive, she said. Miss Harper, are you prepared for what happens when we move forward with this? These are serious charges. Your mother could face significant prison time. She used me for 6 years, I said, then tried to destroy my life when I stopped. She's holding my father hostage in a terrible facility. She forged my signature and stole my identity. So yes, I'm prepared. Detective Morrison nodded. Okay, we'll start the process. I'll need statements from everyone. Mr. Chen, I'll coordinate with you on the legal filings. This is going to take some time, but we have enough here for multiple felony charges. Over the next week, things moved quickly. First, I got emergency custody of my father through the courts. With the real power of attorney and evidence of elder abuse, the judge ruled in my favor immediately. I was able to transfer him out of Riverside State Care that same day. I found an excellent facility called Meadowbrook. It cost $7,200 a month, even more than Greenwood, but the care was worth it. They specialized in Parkinson's and dementia patients. When the ambulance brought my father in, I was there waiting. He looked terrible. He'd lost 12 pounds in the 2 weeks at Riverside. He had bed sores starting on his back. His eyes were hollow. But after 3 days at Meadowbrook, with proper care and his medications properly administered, he started to improve. On the 4th day, I visited, and he looked at me with recognition. "Katie, girl," he whispered. I held his hand, crying. "I'm here, Dad. I'm taking care of you now. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore. Don't let them break you," he said clearly. "Be strong." "I will, Dad. I promise." Meanwhile, I compiled everything for Detective Morrison. The threatening messages, the recording of the men at my apartment, photos of my keyed car, the broken window, all of it. I also worked with Tyler, who was finally ready to come clean about everything he knew. He gave a full statement about the premeditated plan to manipulate me, the gambling debts, everything. With Tyler's help, I also created a comprehensive document showing the full scope of the financial abuse. 6 years of bank statements, $400,000 transferred to my family. Not a single payment back. Not genuine gratitude, just constant demands for more. I sent copies to every family member who'd condemned me after the initial text message. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, everyone who'd called me selfish or cruel. I also wrote a single post on social media. Just the facts. No emotion, no accusations, just a clear timeline with receipts. For 6 years, I paid my family's bills, mortgage, car payments, college tuition, nursing home care, utilities. Total, over $400,000. When I declined to pay $35,000 for a destination wedding, my mother texted me that I was no longer family. When I stopped payments, they filed false harassment claims with my employer, committed identity theft, taking out a loan in my name, forged legal documents, and subjected my father to elder abuse by moving him to an inadequate facility. I've filed criminal charges. Here's the evidence. I attached key documents, names and addresses redacted for privacy, but enough to show the truth. The post went viral in my local community. Thousands of shares. The narrative flipped completely. People who'd condemned me were now apologizing. Brandon's social media posts were screenshot and shared with the caption, "This is what actual manipulation looks like." Amber's friends started commenting on her posts. "Is this true? Did you really do this?" Her engagement photos were flooded with negative comments. But I didn't care about social media vindication. I cared about justice. And justice was coming. Then the dangerous people my mother owed money to showed up at my apartment again. Same two men. But this time I was ready. I'd installed security cameras. Everything was being recorded. "Time's up," one said through the intercom. $70,000. Now. "I don't owe you anything," I said, recording everything on my phone as well. "My mother owes you. Take it up with her." "Your mother has nothing. You have money. We know you work at that consulting firm. Make good money, so you're going to pay." "No, I'm not." The second man's voice got harder. "You really want to find out what happens when you don't pay? I want you to know that this conversation is being recorded and will be submitted to the police. I also want you to know that my mother has been under investigation for fraud. She lied to you about me. She used money I gave her to make minimum payments to you, but that money wasn't hers to use. It was obtained through fraud and identity theft. If I were you, I'd cut your losses and go after her, not me. Because I'm not paying you anything, and I have lawyers who will make your lives very difficult if you continue to harass me." Silence. "We did some homework," the first man finally said. "Your mother lied to us about a lot of things. We're not happy about it. But just so you know, we're not the only ones she owes. There are others. They might not be as reasonable as us. Then I suggest you tell those others the same thing I'm telling you. I'm not responsible for my mother's debts. Go after her." They left. I sent everything to Detective Morrison. She said it was enough to add extortion and harassment charges to the case against my mother. 2 days later, Detective Morrison called me. "We're executing the arrest warrant tomorrow morning. I wanted to give you advance notice." My heart pounded. "Thank you." "Miss Harper, one more thing. We've also uncovered that your mother has been running a similar scheme with other family members and even some neighbors. You weren't her only victim. This is much bigger than we initially thought." The next morning, police arrested my mother at Amber's apartment. Amber, of course, live-streamed it on social media, trying to paint her mother as the victim. But the comments weren't sympathetic. They'd all seen my post. They knew the truth. The charges were extensive: identity theft, fraud, forgery, elder abuse, financial exploitation. Bail was set at $50,000. My mother couldn't make it. She'd stay in jail until trial. Amber started a crowdfunding campaign to raise bail money. It got $42. Brandon, her fiancé, announced he was ending the engagement. "I can't be associated with this family," his post said. "I was lied to about everything." Amber's response was to double down, attacking me even harder on social media. But nobody was listening anymore. Tyler, meanwhile, sent me a message. "I'm sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm done with them. I'm paying my own way from now on." I responded, "That's all I ever wanted, for everyone to stand on their own." 3 weeks later, my mother accepted a plea deal. She'd plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution to me. $45,000 for the fraudulent loan plus $15,000 in damages. The payments would be garnished from any income she earned, likely taking years or decades to repay. But it was something. The court also granted me a permanent restraining order. She was forbidden from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of me for the rest of her life. At the sentencing hearing, she made a statement. She cried and said she'd made mistakes out of desperation, said she loved me, and hoped someday I'd forgive her. I felt nothing listening to her. No anger, no sadness, no guilt. Just emptiness where she used to be. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement, I stood up. "Your Honor, for 6 years I sacrificed everything for my family. I gave them over $400,000. I put my own life on hold. I did it because I loved them, and because I thought that's what family does. But they never saw me as family. They saw me as a resource to exploit. When I finally set boundaries, they tried to destroy me. My mother forged my signature, stole my identity, and subjected my father to elder abuse. She showed me who she really is. I'm glad she's facing consequences. But more than that, I'm glad I'm free from her. That's all I have to say." My mother looked at me with something like hatred as they led her away. I walked out of that courtroom and didn't look back. 6 months passed. My life slowly rebuilt itself. The fraudulent loan was erased from my credit report. Patricia from the bank had been instrumental in helping clear my record. My credit score started climbing back up. At work, I got promoted to director level. My handling of the false harassment complaint and my professionalism throughout the investigation had impressed the senior partners. My new salary was $165,000 a year. My father continued to thrive at Meadowbrook. He had more good days than bad now. The quality of care made all the difference. He still didn't always recognize me, but when he did, those moments were precious. On his good days, we'd sit in the garden and he'd tell me stories about when I was little, about teaching me to ride a bike, about my first day of school, about how proud he was when I graduated college. "You were always my smart girl," he said one sunny afternoon. "Always knew you'd do great things. I learned from you, Dad." "Did I ever tell you about your grandmother?" he asked suddenly. "Your mother? Not much. She was tough, real tough. Didn't take nonsense from anyone. You remind me of her." I smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. As for the rest of my family, Amber lost everything. The car was already repossessed. Without my mother's income or my support, she couldn't afford her apartment. She moved into a studio with 2 roommates and got a job in retail. She still posted bitter things about me on social media occasionally, but I'd blocked her. I only knew because Tyler mentioned it. Tyler kept his promise. He got a part-time job, took out student loans, and finished his degree on his own. He kept a respectful distance from me, understanding that trust would take time to rebuild. But he sent occasional messages updating me on his progress. I appreciated that he was taking responsibility. The people my mother owed money to never contacted me again. I heard through Tyler that they'd seized what little assets my mother had and written off the rest as a loss. I started therapy. Twice a month, I met with Dr. Susan Wallace to process everything that had happened. The financial abuse, the manipulation, the guilt I'd carried for so many years thinking I wasn't doing enough. "You were conditioned," Dr. Wallace explained. "From a young age, you were taught that love equals sacrifice, that your worth was tied to what you could provide. Breaking free from that conditioning is one of the hardest things a person can do." "I still feel guilty sometimes," I admitted. "When I think about my father in that terrible place, even though it was only 2 weeks, I feel like I should have prevented it." "Kathy, you're not responsible for your mother's choices. You tried to help your father within healthy boundaries. She chose to weaponize him. That's on her, not you." The therapy helped. Slowly, the guilt loosened its grip. I also started dating someone. His name was Marcus, and I'd met him at a coffee shop near my office. He knew nothing about my family drama, which was refreshing. He was a graphic designer, funny and kind, with his own life and interests. We took things slow, but it felt healthy in a way relationships never had before. When I eventually told him about my family, he listened without judgment. "That must have been incredibly hard," he said simply. "But look at you now. You survived it. You're stronger than you think." I started building a new life. A life with boundaries. A life where I wasn't defined by what I could give others. I made real friends. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. We'd meet for dinners, go to movies, just enjoy each other's company. It was such a simple thing, but I'd never really had it before. One Saturday afternoon, about 10 months after everything happened, I got an unexpected phone call. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. "Is this Miss Kathy Harper?" a woman asked. "Yes. My name is Jennifer Wong. I'm an estate attorney. I'm calling regarding your paternal grandmother, Helen Harper. I'm sorry to inform you that she passed away 3 weeks ago. My father's mother. I'd met her maybe twice in my life. She'd lived in Vermont, kept mostly to herself after my grandfather died. We'd never been close." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, confused about why they were calling me. "Miss Harper, your grandmother left a will. You're named as a beneficiary. Can we set up a time to go over the details?" I met with Jennifer Wong the following week. She handed me a copy of the will. My grandmother had left me everything. Her entire estate, $280,000 in savings and investments, plus a small cottage in Vermont. "But why?" I asked. "We barely knew each other." Jennifer opened a letter that had been sealed with the will. "She left this for you." I opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Kathy, I know we didn't have much of a relationship, and that's my regret. After your grandfather passed, I withdrew from the family. But I've been watching from a distance. I know what you've been doing for your father. I know about the money you've been sending. I know your mother has been taking advantage of you. Your father is my son, and I'm grateful someone is taking care of him. But I'm angry that burden fell entirely on you. You have a good heart, Kathy. But I've seen people with good hearts get destroyed by people who don't deserve them. I'm leaving you everything I have because you earned it. Use this money to build a better life. A life where you're not carrying everyone else. You deserve happiness. You deserve peace. Don't let them break you. You come from strong stock. Your grandfather and I, we didn't take nonsense from anyone. You have that in you too. Be strong, Kathy girl. Live the life you deserve. Love, Grandma Helen. I sat in that lawyer's office and sobbed. This woman I'd barely known had been paying attention, had seen what was happening, had cared enough to leave me a way out. $280,000, plus a cottage in Vermont. I drove up to see the cottage the following weekend. It was small but beautiful, nestled in the mountains. It needed work, but it had good bones. Hardwood floors, a fireplace, big windows overlooking the forest. I stood on the porch as the sun set, breathing in the clean mountain air, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. That evening, Tyler called. Hey, just wanted to let you know. Mom's getting out on good behavior in a few weeks. Thought you should know in case she tries to contact you. She has a restraining order. If she contacts me, she goes right back to jail. Yeah, but Kathy? She's telling people she's going to make things right with you, that she's learned her lesson. I don't care, I said honestly. She's nothing to me now. Fair enough. Also, Amber's engaged again. Different guy. Apparently, she's not telling him anything about what happened. Starting fresh. Good luck to him. You doing okay? Tyler asked. Yeah, I said, looking out at the Vermont mountains. Actually, I really am. After we hung up, I sat on the cottage porch and thought about everything that had happened. The years of giving, the betrayal, the fight to free myself, the slow rebuilding of my life. I thought about the person I used to be. The one who thought love meant sacrifice. Who thought boundaries were selfish. Who carried so much guilt for not doing more. That person was gone, and I didn't miss her. I was someone new now. Someone stronger. Someone who understood that self-respect wasn't negotiable. Someone who knew the difference between love and exploitation. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner tomorrow? I found this great Thai place. I smiled and typed back. Sounds perfect. Life was good. Not perfect, but good. And that was more than enough. 1 year after everything fell apart, I found myself in a place I never expected to be. At peace. My father celebrated his 70th birthday at Meadowbrook. The staff threw a small party with cake and decorations. He had a good day, fully present and lucid. He sang along to the happy birthday song and blew out his candles with help. What did you wish for, Dad? I asked. That my Katie. Girl stays happy, he said, squeezing my hand. Tyler came to the party too. Things between us weren't perfect, but we were building something real, something based on mutual respect rather than obligation. He graduated that spring and got a job as an accountant. He was making his own way, and I was proud of him. Thank you for coming, I told him as we ate cake. He's my dad too, Tyler said. I should have been here all along. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out what family really means. We were learning together, both of us trying to break patterns that had been set long before we were born. As for my mother, she completed her sentence and moved to a different state. I heard through Tyler that she was living with a cousin and working at a grocery store. She never tried to contact me. Either she'd actually learned her lesson, or the restraining order scared her enough to stay away. Either way, I was grateful. Amber moved away too. According to Tyler, she married the new guy within 6 months. I hoped she'd changed, but I doubted it. Some people don't learn. But that wasn't my problem anymore. The dangerous people who came after me never resurfaced. Apparently, my mother's debt got settled through collections agencies after she declared bankruptcy. I never got the full story, and I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Patricia from the bank became an unexpected friend. We'd meet for coffee occasionally and talk about everything except what brought us together. She was funny and smart and had her own story of overcoming a difficult family. We understood each other in a way that created easy friendship. Marcus and I were still together. We'd moved in together 6 months ago, splitting a nice 2-bedroom apartment closer to downtown. He'd met my father and handled the situation with grace and compassion. He never pushed for me to reconcile with my family or told me I should forgive. He just supported whatever I needed. "You know what I love about you?" he said one evening as we cooked dinner together. "What?" "You're the strongest person I've ever met, and you don't even realize it. I don't feel strong most days." "That's what makes it real," he said. "Strong isn't feeling confident all the time. Strong is getting knocked down and standing back up anyway. You did that." The Vermont cottage became my sanctuary. I'd drive up there once a month, sometimes with Marcus, sometimes alone. I slowly fixed it up. New paint, refinished floors, a renovated kitchen. It was becoming something beautiful. I'd sit on that porch in the evenings, watching the sunset over the mountains, and think about everything that had happened. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the fighting. And somehow, impossibly, I was grateful. Because if none of it had happened, I'd still be that person who thought love meant sacrificing everything. I'd still be funding other people's lives while neglecting my own. I'd still be carrying guilt that was never mine to carry. The pain had taught me something invaluable. I mattered too. My needs mattered. My boundaries mattered. My life mattered. For years, I thought being a good person meant giving until there was nothing left. I thought setting limits made me selfish. I thought family meant unconditional support no matter what they did. I was wrong about all of it. Real love is mutual. Real love respects boundaries. Real family lifts you up instead of bleeding you dry. And sometimes, the hardest and bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who share your DNA but not your values. I built a new family. Marcus, Tyler, Patricia, Dr. Wallace, my father, a small circle of real friends, people who showed up, people who cared, people who respected me. This family was smaller than the one I was born into, but it was real. The money from my grandmother's estate went into investments and savings. I kept the cottage but used the rest to build security. Real security, not the fake kind where you're one family crisis away from financial ruin. For the first time in my adult life, I had a safety net. I could breathe. I could plan for the future. I could live. My career continued to grow. I was good at my job, and without the constant stress of family drama and financial drain, I was getting even better. I got headhunted by a bigger firm with an offer for $200,000 a year. I was considering it. But more than the money or the career success, what mattered was the peace. I could sleep at night without worrying about the next crisis. I could check my phone without anxiety about who was demanding what. I could make plans for my own life without calculating how much I needed to save for someone else's emergency. It sounds simple, but it was everything. On the first anniversary of the night I canceled all the auto payments, I sat down and wrote a letter. Not to my mother or Amber, not to anyone who'd hurt me, but to my younger self. Dear Kathy, I know you're tired. I know you feel guilty all the time. I know you think love means giving everything away until there's nothing left of yourself. I'm writing from the future to tell you. It gets better. But first, it gets much worse. You're going to have to do the hardest thing you've ever done. You're going to have to choose yourself. And people are going to call you selfish for it. They're going to say you're cruel. They're going to try to destroy you for refusing to keep destroying yourself for them. Do it anyway. Because on the other side of that pain is a life you can't even imagine right now. A life where you're not just surviving, but actually living. A life with real love, real friendship, real peace. You deserve that life. You always did. It's not selfish to have boundaries. It's not cruel to protect yourself. It's not wrong to expect relationships to be mutual. The people who make you feel guilty for having needs aren't your people. Let them go. Trust yourself. You're stronger than you know. Love, future Kathy. I folded the letter and put it in a box with all the documentation from that year. The text messages, the legal papers, the evidence. Not because I needed to look at it, but because someday I wanted to remember how far I'd come. My father had another lucid day the following week. We sat in the garden at Meadowbrook, feeding the birds. "Are you happy, Katie?" he asked suddenly. "Yeah, Dad. I really am." "Good. That's all I ever wanted for you. For you to be happy and free." "Free from what?" "From thinking you had to save everyone. From thinking you weren't enough just as you are." He looked at me with clear eyes. "You were always enough, sweetheart. Always." I cried, and he held my hand until I stopped. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd never sent that text canceling the auto payments. If I'd just apologized and paid for Amber's wedding and kept the cycle going, I'd probably still be sending $11,000 a month. Probably still sacrificing my own life. Probably still thinking I had to earn love by giving everything away. I'd be miserable. But I wouldn't know it because I'd never known anything different. The text message that disowned me, as cruel as it was, gave me permission to stop, to finally, after 6 years, put myself first. It broke me open, but breaking open let the light in. Now, sitting on my cottage porch in Vermont, or having dinner with Marcus, or visiting my father at Meadowbrook, or just living my regular life without constant crisis, I understood something fundamental. Saying no is a form of self-love. Walking away from toxicity is a sign of strength, not weakness. And sometimes, the family you choose is infinitely better than the family you were born into. I lost a mother who only valued me as an ATM. I lost a sister who saw me as a resource to exploit. I lost the illusion of a perfect family, but I gained myself. And that trade was worth everything. So to anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, carrying people who wouldn't carry you, feeling guilty for wanting to stop, I see you, I understand, and I'm here to tell you that you deserve better. You deserve relationships where you're valued for who you are, not what you provide. You deserve love that doesn't come with a price tag. You deserve peace. And if people can't accept your boundaries, they're not your people. Let them go. Save yourself. It will hurt. It will be the hardest thing you've ever done. But on the other side is a life worth living. I found that life. And you can too. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who took advantage of you? How did you handle it? Do you think I was too harsh, or did I do the right thing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories help me feel less alone in this journey. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps other people who might need to hear this message find it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in dealing with difficult family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Wishing you all the courage to set the boundaries you need, the strength to maintain them, and the peace that comes from finally putting yourself first. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You deserve it.